Let's go. Okay, fantastic. Hello and welcome. Today is Thursday, October 1st. It is October 2020. You are at the 120 release team shadow orientation meeting. So welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining us. We are recording this and I don't know yet if it will be posted publicly, but let's just assume it's going to be posted. Let's assume there's some great content in here that we can give to the other shadows that can't make it to this call. So I'm going to state that it will be posted publicly now, and all conversations that happen here fall under the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which says, please be respectful and treat your fellow community members with respect in everything that you say and do, including the chat. So happy October, everybody. We've got a jam-packed 30 minutes. I keep it short, sweet, and to the point. The way that I'm going to set this up is I'm going to run through a deck with some background details on being a shadow, welcoming you on board and giving you access to more information. And then I'm going to open it up to questions. And if we have time, I'm going to just navigate the SIG release repository with you if you haven't actually taken time to take a look through that, just to show you ways you have some resources. So I will kick off. Oh, I need to be able to share my screen. Can Savitha, can you help me share my screen? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No worries. So I am going to make you a co-host.
I think that'll do it.
Yeah. How about now?
That looks great. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right, so let's see what we got here. I'm trying to click the right thing. There we go. I think, do you see the shadow orientation deck displayed? I'm going to be switching around some windows here, so I'm not going to full screen it. Is it big enough for you to see?
I can see it fine.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's get into it. So quick agenda, shadowing, what shadowing and mentorship is for the Kubernetes release team and how to get in there, why we're here, what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve together in the 120 release cycle, how to get the most out of shadowing, what if something comes up, how you can get in contact with other people in the community who are here to help and support you. And the magic question is, what happens after this release cycle? We have plenty of shadows come through and say, what can I do next? There is a world of possibility that awaits. So I want to open up your minds to other ways you might contribute, including, you know, other release teams and other parts of the community. So that's the rough agenda I have here. So shadowing and mentorship. So we call these shadows, but really it's a mentorship program, and it's supposed to be folks that have done the role or had experience in roles or supporting roles in the Kubernetes community. They actually help you as a shadow to come on board and understand all the intricacies of how to help and contribute to the Kubernetes project. Now, obviously, Kubernetes is a massive project, and onboarding contributors and community members is something we take incredibly seriously. And SIG Release, which is this special interest group that takes care of the release team, you may have heard of that, is actually has created this great program to bring on shadows and have them be paired up with experienced members of the release team and other parts of the community to actually help onboard you and help get you the most support and the best experience out of this. So it's a great program. You're in a great program. You're in great hands if you haven't shadowed before. If you shadowed before, you may already know this, but there's still the opportunity to learn and actually teach others too. So even if you're a more experienced shadow or you're trying a new role, there's nothing to say that a lead must be in control of shadowing other shadows. If you have experience that you want to share that with other people. You're empowered to do that. It doesn't have to be all coming from the lead. So I know there are several members of the team that may have shadowed other roles or been leads in other roles and are now shadowing. So feel free to help other team members. We're all a team here and we're united for a single purpose, and that's getting the 120 release out of the door to finish round out year 2020. So I'm excited for all of you to be here and join and get the most out of this program. These are volunteer positions. So I just want to preface that. You have volunteered to shadow. Obviously your time is your time, and you've stated in part of the shadow application, and the leads took that into consideration, how much time you'd be able to spend. But obviously we want to just be cognizant of burnout, managing your own time and setting your own boundaries with your time. Everybody's here to volunteer. Nobody's sitting up with a pager specifically on release teams. Maybe some people are. I know that's a tough position to be in, but we got to just respect each other's time and be cognizant that people are in other time zones around the world. So what may be a great time for you to drop something in Slack doesn't mean it's a great time for somebody else, and they may respond 8 hours later, and that's okay. They may respond 12 or 24, 48 hours later. So let's just be respectful for each other, the time zones that we're working in, and, you know, set up your Slack notifications to be paused at the appropriate time that you have to take a break. But we're all in this as volunteers. It's all a lot of our personal time. Some people have time to do it during their jobs, but let's just be respectful of all the time that we're spending together. And finally, you get out of shadowing what you put in. So as it's a volunteer role, come ask questions, say, I have time, I can help with this. Is there anything else you need help with? We're not going to, as the leads, force things for people to do. You need to do that, you need to do this. There's none of that kind of behavior here. It's more, hey, here are some jobs, I have time. So please ask if you have time and you want to focus on things. I know me personally, I carve several hours out a week to focus on Kubernetes contribution. So I could try to stack things up. Here's a list of things I can do, and here's when I will do them, rather than peppering it in and out of the day. That's just the way I work, but you find what works for you. And I'll give everybody a chance to ask questions at the end. I'll go through this deck fairly quickly. So how do I actually get the most out of shadowing? So as a shadow, leverage your lead. Ask them questions, get feedback. If you're new to the Kubernetes community, or even somebody, a seasoned community member, communication is key. So when we communicate in Kubernetes, we have two large avenues that I see. One is on GitHub issues and PRs. We can communicate through that means. It really depends on which audience you want to reach. And then we have the Slack channels. We have the SIG release Slack channel. We have the release management Slack channel. There are a few, but I would say SIG release is a good place to start. So if you haven't joined the SIG release channel, go in there and you can ask questions. Don't feel embarrassed or shy to ask. Obviously, we're all here to help each other. And if you don't ask, there's no way for you to find out, and there's no way for us to help us. So you can either ask your leads, ask anybody in a supporting role, and I'll show you everybody on the team and their Slack handles towards the end of this, so you can do that. I also want to encourage everybody to communicate in the open. So join the Slack channels. I know it's easy to start a DM with your lead, right? And have a one-to-one conversation with the lead. The challenge with that is the other shadows don't see that conversation. And I know when I was leading and I was shadowing, sometimes not being able to see what other shadows were doing was challenging. So I'd encourage you to either in the channel again or set up a DM with all your shadows. So to encourage other shadows to participate. And as I said again, sometimes time zone biases get us into the same people doing the same work, because I'm awake and I need something done and I want to help a team member. But we want to encourage, hey, if there's somebody over in a different part of the world who's happy to do it during their day, but they happen to be asleep now, let's give them the opportunity to actually answer and communicate as well. So I would just say, over communicate. Here's when I have time. Here's when I'm going to be looking at this. Can I do anything to help? Can you help me with this? I need more details. Can we jump on a call? But that kind of asynchronous communication via Slack, or even sometimes synchronous, is kind of good behavior and what we want to encourage. So feel free to communicate. When you're a shadow, we expect you to ask questions. We don't expect you to have all the answers, right? We don't expect you to know where to look. We don't expect you to know where, a handbook or something might be. So ask those questions. It's your time to grow and learn and be supported. So don't be embarrassed. We don't expect you to come on board and know everything about Kubernetes. It's your opportunity to learn. Volunteer as much time as you're able to help with the release. Obviously, I want to say that with set clear boundaries for yourself. We don't want to encourage, you to burn out and work extra hours, because we have many shadows for each role. And the reason we do many shadows for each role is so that we can all support each other, so that we don't have one person completely working around the clock, burning themselves out. We should be able to pass the ball to our, shadows to help us achieve what we need to get done. Attend the SIG release meetings. There are other appropriate SIGs as well. So if you're working in an area where you're like, I am in an enhancement shadow and I have these 5 enhancements and one enhancement is in SIG network and I haven't heard anything from SIG network, you could go to the SIG network meeting. You can add something to their agenda and say, hello, I'm a shadow from the 120 release team. You have an issue in for an enhancement. I haven't heard anything from it. And if I don't hear anything from it in the next 2 weeks, it's not going to be tracked. And more often than not, those people go, oh, I didn't know that that was the case. Thank you for showing up and helping me do the right thing. So, you know, everybody's here. Everybody has fairly good intent. Everybody has good intent in the community to get things done. So often don't feel like you just have to come to our meetings. You can go to the SIG release meeting, which is at a different time. And by our meetings, I mean the release team. And there are other SIG releases you can have a look at, or other SIGs that you can meet with. And if you're working with them, sometimes it's a good idea to show up. I know the comms team, for example, hey, there's a new enhancement and it's under, you know, SIG node. Let's rock up and see if we can get somebody to help us author a blog. Maybe going to the SIG node meeting and adding an agenda item might help get the right attention. Just, you're empowered in your role to do whatever you need to get the 120 release out of the door. So if you need to go talk to other people in other parts of the community, you should be empowered in your role to go and talk to them. Obviously work with your lead and make sure that what you're doing is the appropriate way to do that. Take the opportunities to talk to other non-release team members in the community. So if you are building a relationship, let's go back to that comms example. Hey, SIG node has a new enhancement. Maybe building a relationship with the person who's responsible or people that are responsible for that enhancement is a great way to build new relationships. You might form a relationship and that might take you places down the road in your Kubernetes contribution journey. So that's, I'll just quickly check questions. Is there anything burning that I need to answer now? I see a couple of chats. Yes, okay, I think we're okay. I'll keep moving. Okay, now what if something comes up? What if I have something that's burning? Hey, somebody has fallen ill. I need to take a couple of weeks off. That is okay. Just talk to somebody about it, okay? Going dark and not letting us know. Obviously, there can be extreme circumstances, but just let us know. Circumstances change. The world is a little bit crazy at the moment. We understand that. You have grounds to talk to people. So obviously, the chain of how we would like to talk to your lead. The lead is the person that's going to be most impacted by any changes, and they are the one you're going to have the closest relationship with throughout the 120 release. There's me, the emeritus advisor. If you're having challenges and you need to talk to somebody else, you can obviously come to me. I am a support role for the whole release team, and specifically one of my tasks is to help shadows through this journey. So if you have questions about the shadow program, hey, Lockie, I have an idea. Hey, this would have been a much better thing if you did this, Lockie. Hey, you could support shadows like this. You're a shadow, you're empowered to change it. Don't think because the way the program is now is the way it needs to stay. If you see opportunities and you say, I'm going to go after that for this release and I'm going to make a change to that, you're empowered to do that. That is okay. If you come to me and say, hey, Lockie, this orientation would have been way better if you had talked about this, 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 and this, I am okay to hear that. I am okay to hear that feedback. Come to us. We've got, so you got Jeremy as the 120 release lead as well. Obviously anything really burning, get it up to Jeremy as well. He needs to know about it. That's important. And then you've got the chairs. So we have Sasha, Tim, Alejandro or George, and Stephen. I'm looking at their handles and trying to map them back. So a Symlink. And then we also have Laurie Apple, who is a SIG release program manager. So you may see Laurie around the channels and showing up to the release team meeting and saying, here's our project board. She's actually taking on the responsibility of making sure all the longer lived items and strategy start to get done over time between releases. So you will see her showing up to many meetings. Say hi to Laurie. She has a very important role to take care of all the larger ticket items that don't necessarily just fit into one release. Mid-release cycle shadow survey. So I'm going to send out a survey in the middle of this release to kind of checkpoint where everybody is. That's your chance to give us feedback about your time as a shadow, how you're going with your leads, how you're going with the role, do you have support? It will take you 5 minutes to complete. I will send out a note. And then at the end, we have the release retro. So the release retro doc is actually at the end of it. If you haven't done a release before, we go and have a meeting and say what worked well, what didn't work well, and what are we going to commit to improving in subsequent releases. If you see something, that document is available right now. I'm going to show you how to get a link to it. You can just put in an item. This worked well, this didn't work well, with your name in brackets. And then when we do the release retro, we go over each of those items and we say, here's what went well, here's room for improvement, and here's what we might commit to doing in the next releases. So that's a really important feedback document. So I find as you go and think of things, write them down as you go. It's always hard at the end of the release to remember, oh, what went well, what didn't go well. So that document is open and accessible now. Second to last, what happens after this release cycle? Great question. So if you want to continue on the release team, you absolutely can. You can talk about your expectations and what you would like to do. There is no requirement that if you've shadowed, you have to lead, and if you've shadowed in one role, you can't shadow in another. There's none of those requirements, but talk to your lead. I would encourage that. If you are interested in leading the role that you're shadowing, let your lead know. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, and there's only a fixed amount of leads, but just let them know. If you feel like you want to learn more in another area, apply to a different role. If you want to learn more in the same role, reapply to the same role. That is absolutely okay. There's no restrictions on doing that. So, and if you want to try out other groups, that's fine. There's also the Release Manager Associates group as well. So if you find through this release, oh, I'm really interested in how the artifacts are built and how the branches are cut and how the releases are done, there's a whole team that takes care of that engineering side. So you can go over and take a look at that as well. And we've had many members of the release team say that that is actually really interesting to me. I would like to do that. And I think we have Marco from that team on this. We'll go and check the roster. Marco's coming in from that team to actually make sure he's cutting the branches and making sure the release goes out. Obviously there are roles and SIGs associated with different roles. So for example, if you're working in the comms role or the docs role, or maybe even the release notes, you might say, hey, SIG docs might be a place I could actually go and contribute to. I really like documentation. I want to go do that. SIG PM, which is now defunct, but there is a team that owns the KEPs. If you really like the KEP process, you can go and help with the KEP process under enhancements. So there are many different areas. The great thing about the release team is it's a great place to find your footing, be supported in finding your footing in the Kubernetes community, but there is no requirements for you to stay in the release team. If you say, hey, I love what SIG Node's is doing, I'm going to go work over there, that is okay. The whole community is at your disposal, I should say, in terms of where you want to contribute. There's no restrictions there. And if you don't think the release team is a right fit, you can go explore many other parts of the Kubernetes ecosystem, the CNCF ecosystem, that is A-OK as well. So I just want you to set your scope. You can either come back to the release team, or you can go to other parts of Kubernetes, or you can go to the other parts of the cloud native ecosystem. All of those things are A-OK. And what you'll find with the skills you've learned in the release team, you can take them. They're completely transferable. The way you learn, the way you contribute, they're completely transferable to other projects within the ecosystem and other projects with, sub-projects of Kubernetes itself. Finally, resources for shadows. There is actually an onboarding guide. I sent out a link here. Let me click it if I can. There's actually an onboarding guide here for you to walk through. And it talks about, contact sheets, mailing lists, different forms of communications, how we actually take care of things, and how owner file works. There's a whole onboarding guide there. There's also the README. So let me pop now over to the repo itself, and we'll actually navigate it from that direction. So your one big resource here for go-to knowledge is in the SIG release. So if you go to Kubernetes SIG release repo, I'm going to show you how to navigate it here. Obviously, this is the top level README. Areas that are going to be probably of extreme interest to you is first and foremost, the releases directory should have every release. So you can go and look at previous releases, but obviously we're in release 1.20. This is the table of contents for everything that you're going to need. So here is the meeting minutes. So you can pop them out for here. Here's the release calendar. Here's the Slack channels, contact info, enhancements tracking sheet. So if you wonder what the enhancements team's up to, here's the enhancements they're tracking. Retro document, I mentioned that before. If you want to go start looking at the retro doc, you can go here and click into it right now and say, oh, what went well? You know, I think the shadow orientation went well, brackets, Lockie. You can do that right now. So this is one of the most important things that you can have. Also the timetable, when is code freeze? When is the release going out? You can take a look at all these bits and pieces. They're all here for you to look at. The other bit that's really useful is release_team. Who are the people that I'm shadowing with? Who are the leads? Who are the lead shadows? Everything is up here for you to see. You have access to folks Slack. So if I wanted to contact Celeste, I know how to contact Celeste. Just for an example, anybody here is contactable via either GitHub or, so if you need to add somebody on GitHub or Slack, that also is a great thing to have in your back pocket, figuratively. Let's go back up to the top level. The other thing that is very interesting for me too is the release team, release dash team. Under there, you have the role dash handbooks. What role am I in? I am in enhancements. Here are the responsibilities of the enhancements, lead and shadows. It walks through everything here. So these role handbooks are living documents. If you see things that you no longer think are appropriate to the role, talk to your lead about it. They're only a PR away to fix. So this thing isn't scribed into stone. Feel free, if there's things that are missing, make updates. As you read through them, we just expect that these documents get updated as a matter of course in each release, whereas you know, roles take on different responsibilities and people are reading them and saying, hey, you know what, we don't do that anymore because that's been automated, for example. Or, hey, you know what, we don't look at that tag anymore. Go and update the doc. You have the power to do that. Work with your lead on getting that done. But you have all the roles here. So this is, again, a great release team lead. If you're a lead shadow, you can go through and see everything that Jeremy will be following this lead. So that is all the content I wanted to get through. I want to leave a couple of minutes for questions here, and obviously the questions don't have to stop at the end of the time. Thank you for listening. I hope that you found that informative, but let me go and take questions. Feel free to, let me see, any hands? Feel free to raise your hand and we'll try and use that method if you have any questions, just so I can order it if there's more than a couple of questions here. Do we have any questions?
I have one. This is
yes,
Hussam here.
Go ahead. Hussam, hello.
Hello. I'm a CI shadow, CI signal shadow. I believe I had the same feedback. This is my second round as a shadow.
Okay.
I believe while we are focusing on, let's say, being on certain CI signal and so on, it is sometimes overwhelming to understand the overall ecosystem. So for us to be really able to do a better job, I believe we need to understand the bigger ecosystem. So for me, for example, if I benchmark on the CI signal, I can go narrow down and I know exactly what is the handbook, what is my role supposed to be doing and so on. But I believe there is a huge potential once we understand the ecosystem around us, which to be honest is still for me overwhelming.
Okay.
To understand the other things, understand how we actually, the overall platform itself, how we be more creative. This required us to invest more time and more effort to understand the ecosystem. To be honest, I still fail to find that reference to help me understand how this all works together. I know that it comes with experience, but it's still a bit overwhelming. I'm hoping for anyone, if I'm doing something that is, everyone's sharing as well around being overwhelming and how we be creative around simplifying it. That's
yeah, thank you for bringing that up, and I'm going to go and investigate. I know we have contributor experience. It might be worth throughout the course of a release that you opt into some of the material and courses that they run. So let me go talk to them and see what they think the best next step is. But yeah, I totally understand that it is overwhelming, and I get that. it's always challenging to how much information can you give in a short amount of time. But let me see if I can do something about that and get back to you. Thanks for bringing that up. Are there any other questions? I see Kendall's statement. Yeah, okay. All right. So lots of +1s I see in the chat around, you know, overwhelming the community size and just understanding how it all operates. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. This concludes the shadow orientation. What I will say is reach out to your leads if you haven't had an orientation or a conversation with them about role expectations. They should all take on getting you the knowledge and orienting you on how they're going to operate in this release. And I will encourage them to make sure that they reach out and do that. So that concludes the general shadow orientation, but I'd expect you to have a conversation after this with each of your leads, if you haven't had one already, about how you're going to be involved in this release. So thank you very much for joining. That concludes the 120 release team shadow orientation. We'll see you out there in the release team calls. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.